Have you ever wanted to make a photo look like a comic book, or anything in that fact look like a comic book, but you don't want to use AI because AI sucks, and using AI is a horrible thing for any artist to do? Well, here's a fun tutorial using Photoshop and only Photoshop with no AI. Welcome back to Good Enough Photography. Today I'll be showing a tutorial of how to turn any image into a halftone style comic book image. Just before we get in, I'm a beginner photographer. My website is goodenoughphotography.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps me out a lot. Seriously, please like and subscribe, please. And yeah, let's get into said video. So first of all, what's a halftone? So basically, way back in the day, not way back, but you know what I mean. Before, I don't think anyone was alive back then. It was a while ago, but that's besides the point. So basically, they would try to print color, and so they wanted shading and stuff, but that would take a lot of color. So halftoning helped because they would have like flat, solid colors, and then they'd have these dots. That's what the halftoning is. And sometimes it's not dots. Sometimes it's like like lines, and then sometimes it's square. It just depends. But most of the time it's dots. Now these dots would be different sizes depending on what the artist used, but they would also have different overlays, different angles that they would be overlaid at, and just different offsets and stuff. And so they would use different colors to create said shading and stuff. This was incredibly common for comics because they wanted to be able to produce comics fast and affordably. So let's make our image look like that. First, we never want to forget this. I'm just gonna duplicate the layer. You don't have to, it's a personal preference. I like doing it. I don't know why, I just do. But one thing you don't want to forget is you want to convert it to a smart filter, a smart object. Never forget this, please. So then you're gonna go into filter, and you're gonna go into filter gallery. And you are gonna press the filter gallery. So, there's a bunch of filters in said filter gallery. So, there's artistic, brushstrokes, distort, sketch, stylize, and texture. Texture adds texture. Stylize just does that. That's the only thing in there. Sketch makes it look like a sketch. Now, you can't see it on this image because sometimes it only works with certain images. It's kind of weird. Distort distorts the image. Brushstrokes makes it look brushed. Artistic is different artistic thingies. So we want to start with poster edge because we want that nice, thick, juicy outline. That's what comics and cartoons have. That nice black outline. Now, yes, some comics and some cartoons have non-black outlines, but we're using black. Okay, I don't know how to change it anyway, because I think this only does black. So, like, you're getting black and you're gonna like it. So, basically, there's 3 parts. Most filters have 3 parts. For this one, we have edge thickness, edge intensity, and posterization. So, for the edge thickness, the lowest edge thickness is, well, look, thin edges. The highest edge thickness is thick edges. So, I usually like to keep the thickest edges because we're going to be adding a ton of filters on top of this, and the more filters we add, the more buried this one gets. But we want this to be the first one we do. We are going to add another one later just to like balance it out a little bit, but you just want to make sure that you have a thick, good starting one. That's what also intensity helps with. See, if we have the lowest intensity, it's barely there. Now, if we go to the highest intensity, I like to stick around a 9 or a 10. You can do whatever number, but I like 9 and 10. So, because you want to keep that nice intensity up. It does start to get muddied later, so we want to keep it there. Next, posterization. I can't explain anything more than it kind of like posters it. Like it makes it more flat, kind of looking, like in the background. The highest you go up to, I mean, they both look flat, but like, I don't know. This one, in my opinion, this one looks flatter than that one. I don't know what to say. I like to stick around at 2 or 1. I don't really do much with 0. You can do whatever. It's just like I feel like 0 is just not good. I don't know. Just my personal opinion. And I think 6 is way too much. I think it looks funky, so I like to stick with a 2. So we got our 2 going. We got our smart filters going. And so now we want to go back to the funky filter tab. It's not funky. I'm sorry. And we want cutout. Cutout adds that nice, like, cartoony, layered, not really detailed, flat look we want. So, these are number of levels. That's easy. See, 2 levels, you get 2 levels. See, it's very flat, very, like, very hard to tell what's what. 8 is, see, more. Now, I like to go on the higher end, but I have noticed something. You want to stick with the odd numbers. You see, here's 2, here's 3, okay? Here's 4, here's 5, here's 6. 5 is more detailed than 6. 7's more detailed than 5, but it's also more detailed than 8. I don't know. So I usually stick with the odd numbers because it just looks, I don't know. For some reason, the odd numbers are like more detailed than the even numbers. So I like to stick with that. And then there's edge simplicity, which is just how simple are the edges. See, very simple edges, mostly like triangles and lines. The more complex, it gets very complex. So I like to stick around, I'd say 4 or 5, but I usually, because even if we go to 5 here, it's still kind of hard to tell the images. So I think 3 is too much. I think 4 is just the perfect number. Yet again, it depends on your image. Whatever you think looks best for your image, you just kind of want this vibe sort of thing. Edge fidelity. I don't know what fidelity means, but it's basically like, just like how detailed. Like the lower, it goes up to 3. That's too little detail for me. That's too much. So I like to stick it out at 2. Nice, right in the middle. Yeah. So that's our. See, it already is looking more cartoony. More like, and we only use 2 filters. Like a lot of these tutorials have like up to like they have like 20 filters, and that's one of the reasons for this tutorial that I wanted to be like more simple, because like some of these were just like every single filter that ever existed was put on here. And yeah, I get it. Like sometimes the oil painting and stuff helps, but also like I don't think you have to push it that hard sometimes. So the next thing we need to use is film grain. Film grain is, it's like a add grain. The higher the grain, the more grain. You see here how it's like, you can barely tilt the images, except the middle one, which is kind of, you could probably do a cool, like, you know, thingy with it, how, like, this is, like, all, like, non-grainy, and this is, you could probably do something cool with it, but that's not what we're here for today. And then all the way is, like, no grain. So, I like to keep it with, like, a solid, like, 3 grain. Nope, that's the wrong button. With a solid, like, 3 grain. It does go all the way up to 20, but I think anything past, like, 5, yeah, I think anything past, like, 6 is too much, because then you just start getting, like, it just depends on how dark your image is, too, but then you just start getting, like, you know, it's, like, hard to see, and it looks funky, and you can see it's messing with this stuff, too, so I just like to keep it with, like, a 4 or 3, honestly. Then we got the highlight area. The highlight is, well, how much highlight there is. You see here, most highlight, it's very bright. You see here, the least highlight, very dark. Now, we want a very bright highlight, a very vibrant highlight, because we are going for a comic book. They are very saturated, very bright. So, I like to stick, I always go above 10. I think that, it really depends, because you do want to keep these blacks in here, but you also want the colors to be brighter. So you just gotta play around with it until you find what you want. I usually go for like an 18, or like between 18 and 14 is usually what I stick with, because say you go like here, yeah, you keep your blacks up, but then this doesn't look very comic booky. So I'm gonna go with 18. It does muddle up this area a lot in the final product, so you're giving away color saturation for your outlines. So if you can't compromise that, then go for a lower one, but I think I'm gonna stick with like a 16 here. Then there's intensity, which is how intense the effect is. So, boom, not intense, intenser. I usually go with like a 10 or a 9 for this one. I just like the full intensity, because, I don't know. So here we got our image, but as you're noticing, and as I was saying, the black is like almost gone at this point. Not on the outside, but in the inside, it's like, you know, pretty funky. So we want to go back into our filter gallery, and we want to do another poster edge. This is hopefully going to bring back some of that black, see? So that hopefully will help. You can keep the same settings you had before. If you don't want, that's fine. You just want to make sure that, like, this is a little crowded, but I can't really do much about it. You just want to make sure, like, you can always, like, make this smaller and stuff, just depending on how crowded the lines are getting in your image. And then big places like that, that's never going to get, like, fully unhollowed again, but that's okay, because it's not too noticeable in the final product. So I think I'm just going to stick with the original posterization. It is adding more posterization, but I just mean the original, like, settings and stuff. So this is already looking a lot more like a comic book than it was before, but we have like a few more steps left, and then we're getting pretty good. So we're gonna go into the filter again, but we're actually gonna not go to the artistic tab this time. We're going to the texture tab. So as I was saying before, texture, just a bunch of different textures. Speaking of textures, this one is a lot acrylic painty. So I was like thinking maybe I could do like an acrylic paint or up my whatchamacallit tutorial. My my oil paint tutorial. Sorry about that. But let's go here to grain. So, I'm just gonna reset these settings to what they are usually around to show you what we started off with. So, this is what we started off with. You can see we got those colors in there, which is what we want. The grain adds those extra colors that we need to make it comic booky, you know? The more color, because for the halftones you need a lot of layers of colors. So if you have like no layers of colors, then it just like doesn't look good. So intensity, we want to dial it down a lot. I would say around 50. Yet again, whatever looks best on your image, but I would say 50 to 22. I usually go to around like 22 is a pretty good ratio here. But you're probably wondering, oh well, this looks kind of awful right now. You know, there's like no, it's like, yeah, there's color, but it's like awful. So, we got grain types. We got soft, we got sprinkles, clumped, contrasty instead of contrast for some reason. We got stippled, which you can't really see. We got horizontal, which looks like a carpet. We got vertical, which also looks like a carpet. If anyone wants a tutorial of me showing you how to make your image look like a carpet, I will pop that out, but I doubt anyone wants that. But what we want is enlarged. It gives us those nice and large dots of color. You see, the blacks are a little more black now, but we got a lot of dots of color in our big orange flower. So, so now we got this nice big flower there with a good amount of color in it. We got like all the speckles, and it just looks nice right now, right? So what we want to do is we want to go to filter, but this time we're going to pixelate. We want to do color halftone. So these start out with a bunch of values. Scrap those values, pretend they don't exist. You see, because as I was talking about, the different angles of the halftones determine what it looks like. Now, since this filter, say I change the value here, it doesn't preview like the other ones do, so it's a little more finicky to play with. So that's why it's more finicky to play with. So I would probably stick to the values I have here because those are pretty good. And even yes, each of these channels is a color and each of these numbers is a degree, but I have no clue what color that is, what color that is, what color that is, or what color that is. If I find it later, I'll probably like pop it up on screen right now. But if I don't find it, I don't know. But so I like to do a max radius of 4 because my image is okay, sorry. My image is a 2048, so 2048 by pixels by 1258 pixels. So this is like the size of your dots, the size of your halftones. I like to stick with the smallest one because the larger you go, the weirder it looks. Since my image is that pixels, which I just said, I do 4. Now, I would experiment, since this is a smart filter, I can always go back and change it. Depending on the size of your filter, you might want to change the size of your dots, but you want to stick with this color ratio that I found. So, I like to stick with a 160, a 110, a 100, and a 90. So, that's what it looks like. I think this looks pretty comic booky to me. Now, this may be a little washed out, but I think it looks good because when I look at comics, they are a little washed out. I mean, I am looking at older comics, so it could just be the literal years of colors just disappearing from the color grain. But I think this looks pretty good. Now, it's all up to personal preference here, because, I mean, that's how most editing works. You like, test out what you think works best. If it doesn't, then you know. But, you just want to trial and error with this. Keep, like, the same order, because I attempted to, like, make a copy and paste exact values, exact this, exact that, but it didn't work. It's just, you can't do it for every photo. And that's why a lot of these tutorials fail, because they have exact values. And so, a lot of the tutorials, they look too dark on some photos, or too light on other photos. So you just gotta, like, experiment with your own values, but use the same order. Now, another thing that you could do, I personally don't think it looks the best, but it just really depends on your photo, because some photos looks better on, is before you do all these steps, you could smart blur. I don't do it, but depending on the look you want, it can help. Especially if you have a very complex image. Like, yes, mine's complex, but if you have, like, faces and stuff. And also, if you have people, I probably wouldn't, like, use this tutorial. You could, but, like, the faces get all funky. Unless you, like, do, like, oil painting or whatever. And, like, I don't know. It gets confusing. But that's why. But this is a pretty good start, solid thing. I think it's a good tutorial. Now, another thing, since these are smart filters, you can go around and change them. Now, for some reason, they don't change. They also just say filter gallery instead of what they are. So you kind of got to, like, guess or, like, go through the steps you have. So, like, if we want to go, like, to find poster edge, we know the first one's a poster edge. And we know the fourth one's a poster edge, I think. Yes, the fourth one's a poster edge. So, it's a little funky to go through and edit, but you can always just re-edit all this and try to make it look better. So, let's say I want to edit film grain, which is 3. Come on, film grain. Perfect. Perfect. So, say I want it less highlighted. Let's go with a 10. See, the image gets darker, things change. I like it like that, but you can always go back and change it. It is a little, because Photoshop doesn't change it. So it is a little funky going back through, but you can do it. That was my tutorial on how to make your image or photo or whatever look like a comic book with the halftones and stuff. If you liked it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you liked any of the random tutorial ideas I was randomly talking about, comment down below. And have a great day. This was Good Enough Photography. Bye.